Hello and welcome to the Enterprise Talk Conversation Series, a peer knowledge resource by the CXOs for the CXOs. Now to our host, Kanika Goswami.
Hi, everybody. We welcome you to our podcast On Stage with Enterprise Thought Leaders. My name is Kanika Goswami, and I'm the managing editor of On Media's 6 B2B enterprise technology platforms. We have engaging conversations with global thought leaders and industry experts, reaching over 1.3 million business leaders worldwide. Continuing in our series of conversations on enterprise technology and how to harness it more effectively, we shall be discussing yet another significant subject for CIOs today: future-proofing supply chains with specific reference to healthcare and pharmaceutical organizations. So today we have with us to share his insights, Girish Juneja. He's a General Manager Systech and a Senior Vice President and Chief Digital Officer at DOVER Corporation. It's great to have you with us today, Girish. How are you doing?
Doing well, Kanika. Thanks for having me on this podcast.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So I will speak a little bit about Girish before we launch into the questions. He serves as a GM of Systech, as I just said. Girish is responsible for architecting Systech's strategic direction and expanding the company's partner ecosystem. He is leading Systech in its mission to help companies facing regulatory or business challenges to effectively apply traceability and product authentication solutions. Before joining Dover Corporation in 2017, Girish served in General Management and Chief Technology Officer roles at Altisource and Intel Corporation. Prior to that, he held various senior technology and management roles at Thomson Financial Services, Verizon, and MCI Telecommunications. With more than 25 years of experience in high technology industry and extensive product management, product strategy, engineering management, and technology marketing expertise, he is often called upon to speak at business and technology conferences. Girish earned an undergraduate degree in electrical and electronics engineering from Birla Institute of Technology and Sciences, an MS in computer science from the University of Maryland, and MBA in finance and strategy from the University of Chicago. Welcome to the podcast, Girish. After so many interesting things about you, we're really proud to have you with us today.
Thanks, Kanika. Again, appreciate you having me.
Yeah, so I will start with the first question. What do you think are the challenges that businesses face while managing their complex supply chains? And how can modern enterprises improve the supply chain traceability? And this is pertaining specifically to the pharma and the healthcare industry?
Yeah, supply chains used to be the sleepy part of the industry for a very long time when everything was steady over the last, before COVID and in the last couple of decades prior to that. What we've seen in the last 5 years, the series of changes that have happened, the healthcare crisis, then the geopolitical crisis, and then the inflation crisis, is that supply chains are back in focus and are really important for businesses to operate in an efficient manner to fulfill the customer demand on time and not to have shortages or price increases that are unaffordable at the consumer level. This is especially true in pharmaceuticals and healthcare products. The reason for that is these are life-saving products that need to be available when somebody needs it. And this supply chain has, over the last couple of decades, has become more complex, has become also more regulated. There has been increased regulation in North America, in Europe, and in many other countries on ensuring that the drugs that are available to the consumer are original, not counterfeited, and that they can be traced back to the manufacturing factory where the drug was made in order to have a recall that is limited to the specific set of drugs as opposed to the entire family of drugs made across the industry for if there is a counterfeit or a health issue detected. So what that has led to is it has led to fairly complex changes, both at the manufacturer, but also at the contract manufacturer, primary distributor, secondary distributor, and dispensing. And those changes are just coming into effect because there's a November 2024 deadline in North America for enforcement of that law, that regulation. And many of the companies are scrambling to be ready for it as that comes about.
So how do you propose they improve the situation that they're in? How do they get out of it? What is it that you suggest, or what is it that you, when you consult with clients that need support in that area, what do you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, the good news is this has been 20 years coming. So it isn't news to many of these companies. The Drug Security Supply Chain Act, DSCSA, came about in earlier, a couple of decades ago, in multiple forms. The first version of that required drug serialization and aggregation within the four walls of the manufacturer, right? The more recent one that's going live in November, that intends to have that traceability all the way to the consumer. So through the contract manufacturer, through primary and secondary distribution to the consumer. And this has been a known deadline for last several years. And the way companies are trying to go about that is they are providing digital identification of the physical product and making that information available at the manufacturer, and then enabling everyone else in the supply chain to validate that information as they get the physical hold of the product, right? There are multiple challenges in doing that. I mean, it looks simple, but there are multiple challenges in doing it. But the good news is industry has been moving towards it, has been validating it, has been testing it. I suspect we will still go through a level of difficulty as the law actually fully comes into effect. The reason for that is you will have, as is usual with the disconnect between physical and digital, you'll have exceptions, you'll have challenges, and there are very specific requirements in the regulation, which requires turnaround time in 72 hours and quarantining of drug if everything cannot be matched. That would result in a burst of issues that might be pretty critical. But that's kind of what Systec as a business does in as part of DOVER family to help this industry smoothen out those challenges. And we recently released a exception handling and rework product that is supposed to help smoothen out the challenges they would get as they go live with this regulation.
And what role do you think blockchain plays in all of this complex situation that companies face? And how is Systec harnessing the power of blockchain to help their clients or the market?
Yeah. So look, there are various technology means by which you can do tracing of inputs in the supply chain and components of the products through the supply chain, right? Essentially, you're trying to keep a digital identity of the physical product. You can use a blockchain-based ledger technology. In the pharmaceutical space, the requirement has been a serial number. So you're supposed to give a serial number to a unit of product. Then you're supposed to keep track of that serial number as it gets packed into aggregations of cases and pallets. And then similarly, when it arrives at the distribution and it gets packaged into smaller units to be distributed to secondary distribution, that parent-child relationship is supposed to be kept through that distribution chain. And eventually, as it gets to consumer or dispensing, there is again a requirement to have to revalidate that it was an original product and was an original serial number that came from a manufacturer. So in the pharmaceutical domain, the requirements has been more around serial number based, but obviously you can deploy other technologies in industries where that's not the regulated way of doing it. Blockchain has been used selectively in a few industries. That it comes with its own complications, costs, and challenges. But there are multiple means of addressing this problem. The reason it's starting in pharmaceuticals and pharmaceutical type products, by that I mean baby foods, medical products, cosmetics, is these are the kinds of products which have tighter oversight and regulation coming from the government bodies across the world.
So my next question was going to be, what are the unique issues that healthcare industry supply chains face? But I guess you've already spoken a bit about it. So do you see any other challenges that supply chains in the pharma industry face, which are uniquely handled well by digital technologies? So
Yeah.
I don't know, you are the expert here, so you can probably tell us a little more of, there are challenges which you've discussed. Apart from blockchain, what other technologies do you think, artificial intelligence or tools or IoT tools or whatever,
So I'll
how does
talk
one
about
fight those
technologies,
challenges?
but let me relate it to the kinds of problems we are trying to address, right?
Yes, that would be
So
nice.
in the pharmaceutical space, the reason it's more acute of an issue in pharmaceutical space, you're dealing with patient safety, you're dealing with possibility of drug shortages, you're dealing with an extensive network of counterfeiters around the globe because many of these drugs are very expensive, even though they are life-saving. And there are multiple cases, if you just look around, you will find of unscrupulous element having counterfeit drugs out in the market for especially for these very expensive pharmaceutical products. So it creates this unique environment where having a proper authenticated product is really critical to ensure public safety. Now, that issue is true also in things like baby foods. It's true in cosmetics where you have certain chemicals that can be harmful. It is true even in some physical products where that physical product is going into a critical part of infrastructure, as an example. So in terms of technology and how you can address it, like I said, there has been, based on industries, various attempts made. Pharmaceutical is the one where it's regulated. Therefore, everybody in the industry has had to find a way to engage with other partners in the value chain and to resolve this issue for them because in a way it became business limiting. If you cannot handle traceability of pharma products, you cannot be in the business of providing those pharma products anywhere in the value chain. So it drives a level of attention and focus that in other products we are beginning to see early signs of. And I think it'll expand fairly quickly once this is well established as a means. Technologies, like I said, could be serial numbers. Historically, when you have multiple players in a network trying to coordinate information, there has been three or four patterns that have been followed, right? One has been, let's create a common environment, which is very hard to do when you have global supply chain. And everybody puts their information in common environment, pulls their information in common environment, and connects the digital and physical information that way. Now, in certain countries, EU is an example of that. China is an example of that. There is a nation like a geographic or a political unions, regulation to provide that capability to the participants. So EU has a central environment in which all the players in the value chain have to provide and pull information from. Similarly, China has a similar setup. US does not have that. It requires the players in the value chain to coordinate it amongst them. So one of the mechanism has been a central clearinghouse. Another mechanism has been coordination between different parties. Now, coordination can be done on serial number basis. It could be done based on blockchain. It could be done based on some of the other technologies that have been around a while. EDI is an example of that was created originally to change purchase orders between and payments between different entities in a value chain. So those are the different ways we have seen it done.
Right. Now, there is almost always a risk of security as well. When you're talking about supply chain software, there's a risk of cybersecurity, attacks or vulnerabilities. How do you help them fight that risk?
Yeah. So look, I mean, any digital product you offer in an industry comes with its own risks of cybersecurity. A higher level of risk in these kind of products is the physical product security. By that I mean counterfeits, right? So just to give you a simple example, in the morning, actually, I was reading an article where I think it was in India or some other place where they busted a racket of people producing counterfeit cancer drugs. So people who are depending on these drugs for life saving are being offered these counterfeit drugs, and it was a multi-million dollar racket that was going on. So Systech products start at the factory floor. They connect with the manufacturing, the packaging lines where the drug is being packaged. Using cameras and using software, we connect that, we interlock the physical and digital product. So there's a digital serial number and there's a physical product. They're interlocked at that line, right? Then our product through cloud services offers that capability for downstream supply chain vendors to validate that the product they got in their dock and that they unpacked from pallet to case to unit, they could re-verify back and ensure that it is the same product. It is the original product. Now the challenge is you can also sometimes have serial numbers counterfeited, right? You could have duplicate serial numbers. How do you detect that? For that, we have layered another technology on top, which is patented technology that uses the barcode and creates a unique e-fingerprint from that barcode, the 1D and 2D codes. And that unique fingerprint can be detected downstream in the value chain as not only having a valid serial number, but also being original. So that combination, the layered security of the product, the first layer being there is a serial number, that serial number is validated with manufacturer. The second layer of security being the physical package, which has a barcode. That barcode was authenticated that it was produced in the packaging line or at the manufacturer. That double layer of protection then offers customer the safety that they're looking for in a life-saving drug. Now, cybersecurity is really important around this infrastructure that we offer. And our solutions at Systech, they have gone through cybersecurity validation. There's a certification called SOC 2 certification that our products have gone through in order to validate the cybersecurity of those offerings.
So this is all being done at this point in time. What more do you think will happen over the next couple of years for supply chains specific to the pharma and the healthcare industry that will make them safer, faster, stronger, whatever the businesses want them to be at that point in time? And you are mentioning critical drugs like cancer, so their supply chains will have to get much better if anything has to improve there. How is Systech helping, and what tools do you see coming up? What innovations do you see happening over the next couple of years? Maybe quarters, not even years.
Yeah, pharmaceutical industry has done phenomenal amount of innovation in the last 15, 20 years. I have met people who have said that their lives have been saved just in the last 4 to 5 years of innovation, that if they had the same disease 5 years ago, they would not have survived. So with the enormity of the life-saving potential of these drugs comes the higher risk of people trying to counterfeit because they are expensive drugs. And what we are seeing, just like cybersecurity, we are seeing the counterfeiting industry grow leaps and bounds. It's a huge source of illegitimate wealth generation for the criminal environments. And therefore, we don't see the reasons for counterfeiting to vanish. That means the vigilance and the protection against that, just like in the cyber attack world, has to go up. Okay, we expect more innovations in the pharma industry, so more drugs, more critical life-saving drugs, therefore more potential for counterfeiting, and therefore more need for having layered protection. And we strongly believe here at Systech that it has to be a layered protection model. No single means of protection will safeguard against all possible ways of having illegal drugs in the market that should not be floating around. And that's kind of what we are innovating on. We're innovating on layering additional capabilities so that the customers who may be manufacturers, may be national distributors, but in some cases maybe international distributors of vaccines and so on, they have the ability to validate that the product they have is safe. And eventually, we expect the consumer to demand a digital experience where they can be satisfied that the product that they have bought from the dispensing environment is original. And we are extending our technologies to that part as well.
So those are the questions I had for you, Girish. Is there something else we should know? Like you just shared with us that there is you're working on several layers or multi-layers or top layers or over layers of security in various ways. Is there anything else that you guys are working on which is going to benefit the industry in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so some of the technologies I talked about, they're things that Systech has announced in public domain. So, but their obviously R&D continues to move the boundary in areas that we don't typically talk about till the products are ready. What I like to bring your audience attention to is that I've talked a lot about pharmaceuticals, mainly because that's the deadlines are here and now. We are working with a lot of customers as of today and as of this week and next week to make their capabilities ready for the regulation. However, there are various products in the industry where the level of counterfeiting is through the roof. It can be all the way. I mean, you can look at apparel and fashion on one end. You can look at med products and baby products on another end. You can look at even challenges of sourcing materials from places that you may have regulation not to source material from, that you want to trace. These all problems now have a digital solution where you can deploy it and create that traceability end to end and have secured supply chains. The benefit of secured supply chains is not just that you're following the law, but also you are ensuring the quality of the product your customer is getting. And you are ensuring that you would not go through shortages or other problems that arise when something faulty is found that cannot be traced back to where it came from in the supply chain. And you tend to take more draconian measures rather than limiting only the production from the place where something counterfeit or incorrect came from.
So thanks so much for the time you took for us today, Girish. Really appreciate it, and a very interesting conversation as I had expected. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kanika. It's been a pleasure. Look forward to speaking to you again. Thanks again for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. Please do follow us on social media for regular updates and new content.